Welcome to San Diego Integral, August 10th, 2024. Our topic today, How a Leaderless Cult Threatens Law and Order Worldwide, the Sovereign Citizens Movement, presented by Lynne Feldman.
Welcome to San Diego Integral. I'm Tom Habib, and I'm a member of the San Diego Integral leadership team. We'll begin shortly, but I first want to mention that we are recording this meeting. If you prefer not to be recorded or be on video, you can just turn your camera off. Although we'd like to see your faces, it helps with interaction and connection. The link to this recording will be on the meetup page a day or two after the event and on SDI San Diego Integral's YouTube channel. Also, you can find future events and information at San Diego Integral.org. We're also on Meetup and Facebook, and you can find links to those on our website as well. The advantage of joining one of these areas is that you'll be automatically notified when new events are added, and we don't mark it. We won't send your email out for obnoxious emails. If you ever have questions or comments about these meetings, you're welcome to contact one of the members of the leadership team. Next month, on September 14th, we have Michael McEnany from Integral Leadership in Action. Michael's presented here about 18 months ago. But the talk is going to be building micro practices for self-mastery. My reading of this presentation is that it puts mindfulness on steroids via daily routines to accelerate our personal growth. I'm always looking for ways to accelerate my growth. Finally, we invite you to make a small donation today. It helps cover the cost of hosting, advertising, all those things. You can make a donation on Facebook, San Diego Integral.org also. Okay, so without further ado, Eloy Mays will introduce our esteemed guest, Lynne Feldman.
Yeah, so welcome, Lynne. Lynne has a rich background as a lawyer, teacher, and a chaplain based in New Jersey. She's co-authored several articles exploring integral theory. Lynne's personal journey includes a profound battle with 2 life-threatening illnesses, which she details in her book, Integral Healing. The book chronicles her medical and spiritual journey and showcases her resilience and commitment for integrating these experiences into her broader life philosophy. Lynne's work extends beyond personal healing, contributing significantly to integral community and continuing her lifelong learning and teaching in various capacities. There's a lot more here. Her education includes Tulane University, a BA in political science, Columbia University, a graduate faculties, an MA in constitutional and public law and government at Fairleigh Dickinson University, teaching at Pace Law and a JD, Pace Law JD, and lots of certifications. So let's give a warm welcome to Lynne.
Thank you. I'm going to ask for your indulgence. I'm going to read from a script. I don't usually do that, but this is a time-sensitive area. And the trouble is that I have so many stories to tell that if I don't stay on script, we're going to be here all day. So please just, I don't usually do this, but I'm reining myself in. In addition to being an attorney, one of the things I used to be very proud of, I am a member of the United States Supreme Court Bar, and I was admitted to the bar when Ruth Bader Ginsburg was still there. There's a pin that they gave us. It was a beautiful ceremony. I don't wear it anymore. I'm ashamed of what the Supreme Court has become. Anyway, I retired as a certified special education attorney in 2022 as a result of COVID. Mm-hmm. Now, my daughter, my son-in-law, and my grandson, we all live together. So my daughter is also an attorney. And one of the rare things about us is that we adore being in front of a jury on trial. In case you thought that every attorney loves being on trial, it's quite the opposite. They would rather commit suicide than being in front of a jury. Only 10% of attorneys actually litigate. So my daughter and I just love being in front of juries. Anyway, after I retired, my daughter continued working. She is lead in-house counsel for Geico Insurance. So she's got her full-time job. I retired in 2022. By the way, last month I turned 79. So I really thought I was retired and I would spend time having lunch, traveling, and playing with my grandson. Didn't happen that way. What happened was that bored in 22, we started watching the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial, which was televised. And, you know, our love of good and bad lawyering really struck us. And then after that trial was over, we was like, what do we watch now? Well, it turns out there was a new trial being broadcast. It had to do with a man named Darrell Brooks. People don't remember him. It was a murder trial, and it was broadcast on Zoom in 2022. Briefly, the story was that in 2021, in Waukesha, Wisconsin, he got mad at his girlfriend, jumped into an SUV, and at full speed charged into the Waukesha, Wisconsin Christmas parade, killing 6 dancing grannies and injuring over 70, seriously injuring. He was looking at 6 life terms, and he decided to defend himself. Now, what the heck is that all about? Well, in the United States Constitution, we have the 6th Amendment. Unless you are incompetent, you are permitted to defend yourself. The judge will try to talk you out of it when you're looking at 6 life terms, but it's your right. It's called being a pro se defendant. Now, here's the catch, and this is what the Sovereign Citizen group has figured out. Although the judge will warn you that you will be treated just like an experienced attorney, this is not true. They coddle you and you get away with a lot. So this is one of the loopholes that this group, which I'll describe to you, has figured out. During this weeks-long trial, Erica and I are listening to it, and it was the same as if you all were listening to Jabberwocky. Some of the words made sense, and some of the words didn't, and we were confounded. The judge was flummoxed. She tried her best to figure this out, but she was having a hard time. Anyway, after the trial was over and he was sentenced to 6 life terms, Erica and I said, what was he talking about? So independently, I decided that and she joined me on her off hours, we would go down the rabbit hole. What is a sovereign citizen? What is he talking about? Well, we went down the rabbit hole, turned out into a labyrinth, and turned into a very dangerous volcano that is very rarely spoken about. We began to see similarities in this man and others like him, very similar to what we see in the United States with the MAGA movement of Donald Trump. Fascism, Christian dominionist values. I've written a paper on it. It's one that's been appended called As Above, So Below. And I also, because I have the time, I've read the Heritage Project's, it's the Republicans Project 2025. Don't bother, I did it, so you don't have to. It's 90 pages long. And in addition to it being disgusting, I found a sentence in it that scared the heck out of me as a scholar of sovereign citizens. It says, if Donald Trump is elected, there will no be stopping any person from having his own personal interpretation of the law. So I'm not getting paid. We don't make any money on this. Erica and I are committed. This is a duty to warn. So we are presenting to as many people as possible. And what happens is when we present, people go, I don't know what she's talking about. It doesn't pertain to me. And after we present, we get a rush towards us going, holy cow, this is bad. Or, oh my God, I had no idea that's who I was dealing with. Okay, so that's what I'm here for. Eric and I have written, researched, published, we presented, we have 1,000 YouTube videos. We have a filing cabinet worth of academic research. We've held continuing legal education courses for attorneys in New Jersey, for patrolmen in Pennsylvania, and a man I'll talk about later has invited us to Harvard in November to address his law and psychiatry group, specifically about leaderless cults. A new book has come out. I just got it yesterday. I can't really talk about it much. It's by Barbara McQuaid. She's a former federal prosecutor. How Disinformation is Sabotaging America, an Attack from Within. So although, you might find it kind of interesting to hear about crazy sovereign citizens, this is serious, and it is attacking us, and I'll explain why. Again, forgive me if I refer to law enforcement officers by the shorthand name of cop, if I'm talking. Also, forgive my pronoun default to he. Yeah, I know it's he or she, but I'm talking fast. What the heck is a sovereign citizen? And I'm going to be abbreviating them to a SOV-CIT. This is an imperfectly named movement. It is a movement. The FBI has rated them the most serious domestic terrorists in the United States. And you've never heard of them. Attorneys have never heard of them. Judges, cops have never heard of them. There is no cohesive organization. There is no membership card, although there are groups that call themselves state assemblies in every state, so they may get together occasionally. The exact number, unknown, and you'll find out why. Is there 1 million of them, 2 million in the United States? And we found out, and again, from our research, all of a sudden I get something on my feed. Oh, a sovereign citizen in Nigeria. What? Nigeria? The Netherlands is complaining about the overrun of sovereign citizens. The Netherlands? Canada, you are probably familiar with them, but I'll go on to it. There are basically 10 countries that we know of now that are having this problem. All of these people are lone wolves. All of them are practicing what we call now stochastic terrorism. This is not like a cult with the leader at the top and the minions at the bottom. We have discovered they're in 10 countries. 30% of all far-right extremists are part of the sovereign citizen movement, and they are hiding in plain sight. Every prison and jail in the United States has a group teaching the sovereign citizen stuff. It comes from social media, from content creators who profit from selling seminars for $150, $1,500. They sell workbooks for $1,000, and they tell their members to carry these scripts that they read from and to carry Black's Law Dictionary, which they think is a law book. It's not, it's a dictionary. And they tell them only the 4th edition counts. Why? Because the 4th edition was published in 1957 and it's out of date, but I'll get to that later. Only 1% call themselves sovereign citizens. If you call them a sovereign citizen in one of their 99%, they will accuse you of bias, racism, and try to get a judgment against them appealed. We've seen this over and over again. They sound delusional. They're not. Only 1% of them have been found not competent to stand trial. They go under many, many names. American State National, flesh and blood human being, constitutional law scholar, free or natural man, sovereign person. Canadians, you will find this recognizable, free men on the land, attorney in fact, beneficiary of a named trust, appearing in special appearance only. I am not my all capital name. Think about that one for a second. What? I'm a First Amendment auditor, or the dangerous group, Moorish, Indigenous, Aboriginal person. They're the violent ones. Have they killed people? Yes, fairly recently. So this is an oxymoron. You can't be a sovereign citizen. If you're sovereign, you can't be a citizen. And I won't go through the rest of this. Why is this a problem? Well, there are 30,000 state judges in the United States, 1,700 federal judges, 800,000 police personnel in the United States. Very few know about sovereign citizens. As we inquire, we are finding out they don't know what they're dealing with. Okay, so what happens? First of all, at a normal traffic stop in your state or your country, because they exist in the UK, Ireland, Northern Ireland, Germany, New Zealand, Australia, France. So a normal traffic stop, which should take 15 minutes, because they read the script and they confound the cops, it takes an hour for a traffic stop with 5 policemen and patrol cars. Why is this important? Because they could be doing actual police work. The idea is to delay the cops from doing their job. A criminal court arraignment, it's a little script where the judge says, this is what you're being charged with, what's your name? It takes 10 minutes. I've done them for years. It can take, and I will read to you at the end, it can take 3 days of court time because they've got a script that they're reading from that will confound the judge. It's impossible to research. Well, anyway, I'm going to skip down. How did they start? Well, this is an interesting story. I did a paper on it. Imagine, in law, there's something called fruits of the poisonous tree. Basically, in law, it means if you don't have a search warrant and you break into somebody's house and you find a gun, if you don't have a search warrant, you can't use the gun at trial because that's the fruits of a bad search without a search warrant. I'm calling this fruits of a poisonous tree because what I've discovered, imagine all of the fascist, anti-Semitic, you name it, conspiracy theories from way back, white supremacy, Christian dominionist, and all tangled together into a tree. And the sovereign citizens movement has taken all of these poisoned aspects and written scripts in order to do stochastic terrorism on the rest of us. It started in the 1970s and the 1980s when the banks were taking over people's farms and they were taking over people's homes during the banking crisis. So there was a group called Posse Comitatus, which started, and that was one of the beginnings. Now, that stopped, but wait, we have a Black president. Well, that can't be right. So we have to do something to fight the Black president. So we begin to develop 21st century conspiracy theories. And I'm going to get to integral in just a moment, if you'll just bear with me, because of all the research that I've read, and it's mountains of it, nobody's used an integral perspective for this. And it makes sense when you apply integral to it. So just bear with me and you'll see where I'm going. So we have this group of conspiracy content creators, and they figure out how to make money on it. I don't know, the friends that I talked to didn't know this. Do you know if you have a YouTube channel, which everybody does now, you make money off it? It becomes monetized if you get enough clicks. Every sovereign citizen has a YouTube channel. They live stream, and they're trying to earn a living off of these encounters that they have. So what have they done? How did they get people to subscribe to what I'm about to tell you, which makes no sense? They've successfully mixed evangelical holdings that there is nothing between you and your God, and whatever you're getting from your God is God's truth, and no government official can say no between you and your God. All right, so we've got the evangelical. And they also say it is illegal in the United States, and you'll hear this on the far right, it's illegal to have a separation of church and state. Everything must be joinder of church and state. So they've created a narrative that is holy and patriotic. to justify their contempt and disdain for law and order. Where are the new people coming from? Because they're new people every day in this movement. They're coming from QAnon, and they're coming from the Christian identity movement. Michael Flynn has gone to war. I won't go into his background, but he's heading up a war to make the United States a completely Christian nation. It would be, that's his bit. Basically, and you will know this from other cults, the scripts that they've created say that there is a hidden true history of the United States that their schools never taught. Of course, I taught school for 25 years, so this was a big shock to me. Here's what they say. Either after the Civil War or in 1933, it depends on which content creator has created which myth, the United States went off the gold standard in 1933. Not true, it was during Nixon, but let's not bother us with facts. So the US became penniless. During that time, it was taken over, the government was overthrown by an illegal corporate cabal that is anti-Christian, ungodly, and satanic. Therefore, it is the sovereign citizen's holy and patriotic duty to overthrow law enforcement and the judicial system by any means necessary. Am I making this up? No, I'm not. I have read their readings, their writings. I have listened to their videos. And the only laws that they need to obey are the ones that they personally have chosen to obey. They talk about the fact that during this overthrow, the government was taken over and common law was thrown out. They think common law was the law that put God on top of the government and then the people, a person right under it, and therefore no government could intercede between God and the individual. Well, that's not what common law means. That's not the definition. They say that common law was illegally replaced with corporate, contract, maritime, and admiralty law. Here's their proof. There are gold fringes on our flag. Yeah, you got it. Only maritime, only admiralty, only ships have gold fringes on their flag. There you go. The judge sits on a high bench like the captain of a ship. You have to enter this corporate admiralty jurisdiction by passing the bar. That's that little gate that separates where the judge and the plaintiff and the defendant sit and the audience sits behind them. Well, here's where this all makes a lot of sense. When you are born, I'm not making this up, this is what they believe. It's called a strongly held belief. When you are born, your mom's water breaks and you descend down the birth, B-E-R-T-H, canal, C-A-N-A-L, into the hands of a doc, D-O-C-K, Tor, who satanically slaps your bottom and delivers your dead after birth, B-E-R-T-H, read placenta, which becomes the evil straw man. And I don't know if you know what that means, but I'll explain. The straw man's name is put on a birth certificate in all capital letters, ladies and gentlemen. Check your driver's license, check your passport. It's all in capital letters. And you never consented to that, did you? That only proves that you are enslaved for all of your future earnings to foreign governments. Well, is it the British or the Jews? Yeah, they're not really sure. Since after we gave up the gold standard in 1933, the US is broke. They will stand in court. Again, I have 1,000 videos and they'll go, well, the US has no money anymore. And the judge will try to explain to them that's not true. They won't listen. So they claim it is this enslaved straw man in all caps who actually received that ticket that was arrested, because the arrest warrant is in all capital letters. That eviction notice, it was sent to you in all capital letters. It's not you, the man of flesh and blood. It's the straw man. Or owed that credit card debt. That contract you signed, you didn't do it as a free human being. Now, you can undo this and become sovereign as God mentioned you to be. Never pay tax, never obey. If I see one more person speeding at 100 miles an hour, gleefully claiming, well, I'm no longer beholden to that law because I don't choose to obey that law. You're never going to have to pay any tax or fee or debt. And I did not consent to that. And they will tell you, no, you don't understand. I am now operating in the private, not the public. Why? Because I've sent back, and they do, they send back their passports, they send back their birth certificates, their driver's licenses, whatever license they have, back to the state government. And the content creator has forms you can buy from him that make this legal. And then you don't have to ever obey any law. Now, I have many clips of people going through the Canadian and the Mexican border trying to explain why they don't need a passport. The customs officials are not amused. So why don't they realize they've been conned? I'll get to that. So anytime you, you return your licenses, you return to your sovereign, godly position. But there's more. Oh, there's more. Guess what? Because the government felt so bad about enslaving you to the British government, or the Jews, I don't know, it depends. The illegal government has set up a bank account for each of us in the Federal Treasury Bank. Don't ask. Each of us has a secret account for either 60 million or $200 million. When I tell you they believe this, 1,000 videos say they do. So when they owe a debt, their rent, they send the rent notice back, take it out of my treasury account. And then they wind up in court with a confused judge who has no idea what they're talking about. Okay, when they get stopped by a cop, he's not a law enforcement, he's a policy enforcer. He only enforces policies from this corrupt government. They're not laws. I could freely not obey his orders. And I'm not going to get into the whole, there's this whole thing about sheriffs. During COVID, they're called constitutional sheriffs. They believe that they are superior to the governor and the president. Again, don't ask me to go into it. It's another rabbit hole. And out west, they overruled their governors on COVID mask mandates. So a sovereign citizen is told, always ask for a sheriff because they know the law. The average cop doesn't know. The next thing that they are trained to do, I didn't believe this until I saw it. They train the person in the car. Okay, you get stopped for a ticket. The cop comes over, he's in uniform, in a dominant position. You're kind of the submissive officer. Why did you stop me? No. You see, he's illegal. He's not really law enforcement. So what you do is you tell him who's boss, and you actually turn him into the submissive as you become the dominant. We've seen it over and over and over again. And if the cops don't know Pennsylvania versus Mims or any, and the sovereign citizen will say, well, obviously you don't know the law, do you? You're only a cop. What do you know? I know. And then the cop, if he knows Pennsylvania versus Mims, which gives him the right to stop you and ask for your license. And if you don't have it, he can get you out of your car. They'll go, no, 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 no. You haven't heard the Supreme Court just issued 4 new decisions that say that I'm right. 800,000 cops are going to know the recent Supreme Court. No, of course not. All right, now we go to court. They're not going to have a lawyer. Hello. Why? Because of the unratified 13th Amendment. I taught history for 25 years. I never knew there was an unratified 13th Amendment. It wasn't ratified because what it said was, if anyone in the United States had a title of nobility, meaning being a Tory, you can't be a citizen after the Civil War. So because all lawyers have Esquire after their names, they're actually beholden to the British Crown. And so you're not working for me. Also, we don't have to listen to a judge because he's not really a judge, because he's not operating under common law. So what do? They call the judge by his first name. Cyril, do you know the law? Where's your bond? I would never do that. Or, my honor, I disagree with you. My honor, because he's not operating in honor. Why do they keep repeating the script if they keep losing? Every single one of them loses. There's never been a sovereign citizen loser, because it's like any other cult. Oh, wait a minute. You didn't put your thumbprint on it, did you? Oh, if you had, you would have won. Okay, that's what we're dealing with. This is magical thinking. And they believe that we are all operating under ungodly, satanic. They've also now, because they don't believe in our law and order, they've created their own judicial systems. They have their own post offices, their own grand juries. And yes, they have, I just read, three cops in Florida had arrest warrants put out for them by sovereign citizens from their courts that they created. And yes, they have issued executions. None have been carried out, but yeah, it's out there. They are very difficult to research. And then after this, I'm going to break. They refuse to be identified as sovereign citizens. Google it, you'll get the FBI, you'll get ADL, you get Southern Poverty Law Center, and maybe a couple of articles. They don't, I'll explain to you, they don't do their things under the title of a sovereign citizen. So how do you research it? I surveyed all 50 states to see, can I research this? These are some of the headlines that I got from the 50 states. I'm going to read this to you. And this goes to, how do you know it's true? This is a real headline. A sergeant returned from Iraq to find her house inhabited by Native Americans, but she can't get them out. I'll explain what that is. Woman won't let father visit with his daughter. She claims girl is her private vessel. Next. An arrest warrant has been issued for 3 judges. Next. An Arizona state national won $100,000 in court. That's what you get when you try to read about them. They don't wear red hats with MAGA on it. You don't know who they are. They could be anybody. Would you like to take a break now? On a breakout?
Yeah, I've made breakout rooms for everybody. Maybe about 4 people in each room. We'll have 15 minutes. And the discussion question Lynn has suggested is for us to discuss for the 15 minutes. Make sure you give everybody in your room time to talk. How do you determine what's true? It's kind of the meta question, because all that she's been talking about is what they believe, but then how do we know what's true for what we believe? And she says, like, our legal system is predicated on the enlightened belief in the reasonable person standard, but we know now from neuropsychobiology.
Neuropsychobiology.
Yeah, that we make decisions first on our emotions and rationality second. So how do you decide what's true? If you saw the headlines that Lynne just read or heard a story, do you accept it immediately, or do you have your skepticism, and how do you check? So we'll have some time to discuss and get to know each other, and I'll see you back in 15 minutes.
Breakout sessions are not recorded.
There we go. There we go. Thank you. I had a fabulous breakout room, and boy, I got a whole bunch of new things to read. I'm really so happy. Thank you. One of the things that we get when Eric and I present, everybody goes, well, that's very interesting. I've never met one. This has nothing to do with me. Stay tuned. We thought too that, it was curious, but it didn't really pertain to us. And when you go online, and I have given you 2 YouTubers who have devoted themselves to sovereign citizens, and their favorite one is the Sovsits getting their windows smashed. It's a lot of fun. Anyway, but that's not what we began to see. And this is the dark side. Sovereign citizens don't believe that they have to have driver's licenses, registration, or insurance. They also don't believe they need boating licenses just in case you boat. They don't believe their ships, their boats, have to have registration or inspection. Okay. What about pilots? Listen to this one. My late husband was a flight instructor, and if he were here now, he'd have a lot to say. They also don't believe they need pilots' licenses. Yeah. See? So what did I find out? There's a gentleman in Alaska, a Sovsit, and he's already had his pilot's license permanently denied. He's never allowed to get a pilot's license, but he has a plane. He has been involved in 3 near collisions, and he keeps flying. Think about that one. Yeah. Next. Let's say that you're in a situation where somebody sues you, you're suing them, and you don't realize they're a sovereign citizen. They don't wear a MAGA hat. They're going to commit what's called paper terrorism on you. This is their classic bit. What does that mean? Let's say you have a neighbor who damages your yard or your apartment, and so you sue him in any court for, let's say, $2,000, whatever it is. It's not big. Well, he then demands 100 pages of discovery from you. I want a copy of every check you ever wrote, everywhere you ever lived, every complaint you ever made, every email and every text. And if you don't, you'll be in violation. He will send out what's called interrogatories. I don't know if you know what an interrogatory is. When you're involved in any kind of lawsuit, he's allowed to get you to fill in questionnaires. Well, the questionnaire could be hundreds upon hundreds of questions. In the interrogatories, detailed questions about your health from birth to date, your physical and mental health, the drugs you've used, where you've lived, your schooling. And then after that, he buries you week after week with motions, pseudo-legal filings that can take months for you and the judge to sort out. But wait, you have a lawyer. Now you're paying legal fees for the lawyer to figure out what's going on. They don't understand what's going on. But, these are motions he legally filed. You have to answer them. So what does your lawyer tell you? This is too much trouble. You wanted $200,000. Give up the lawsuit. Yep, you got it. That's what they want. And it's called paper terrorism. All Sovsits use it. Next, you own a house. You have a tenant in it. But the tenant hasn't paid, so you want to foreclose on his interest in the house. Forget it. He will issue motions again. Okay, what they do is they go to their content creators, and they pay for motions to be sent to them. They've got all of these pseudo legal motions that you can buy from them, and they will tell you exactly how to disrupt your attempt to get your property back. Now, here's the deal. We saw one of these, and my daughter said, what the heck are these cases? 4 cases took her 2 days to go through. Each case was 190 pages long. So she looks through it. She goes, this has nothing to do with what he said it has to do with. She's already spent a day worth of lawyer time looking through it. Or she finds one sentence that he's cherry-picked out of a case, but it has nothing to do with your case. Or it's been overturned. Anyway, it takes so much time for your lawyer, or definitely you, to find out so that you can get your property back. Next, this is what troubles Erica and me. Both of us in our previous practices did family law. We did divorces and custody. We've seen so many of these, and we warn lawyers about this. If you are involved in divorce, custody, child support payments, watch out. Number 1, this is real. We're listening to this case, and it's a very intelligent man. He worked for some intelligence group in the government. He's a veteran, got a lot of college degrees, and his ex-wife is asking for child support for his 2 daughters, and he doesn't want to pay. Nothing soft said about that, but he looks smarmy. I said, there's something going on with this guy. And then I heard him say, listen to this one. I never contracted with her to make a child. So she illegally converted my God-given sperm to make a child. So I am not obligated to pay child support. And the judge has that deer in the headlights looks. He did find against the husband, but the next day, because what? What? Conversion? That's a crime? Contractual between what? You see? Okay, next. My child, this came from a woman. Again, we didn't know she was a soft sit. My child is my private vessel. So I'm not giving my child to the father. This is another one. He got me, or she got me, to sign the birth certificate and support order under fraud, duress, and coercion. Time out. We got to go. We got to see what's going on with this if the judge doesn't know the playbook. And not many judges know the playbook. This also frightens us. You have a parenting order. You know what dad gets Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. You get whatever. I will move wherever I want, whenever I want, because I am not a US citizen any longer. So Erica and I were saying we've got to warn people, and we've got to warn lawyers as well as judges. Do not trust a sovereign citizen when it comes to visitation or child support. They're not going to obey it, period. The next thing, a company owes you money and they're declaring bankruptcy. I mean, I've handled a lot of bankruptcies, but they're going to lie about their assets. They're allowed to. And my chance of getting any money back from them is nil. Now, my daughter works for Geico, so we've had a lot of discussions about this one. The guy's car has no license, no insurance, no registration, and he crashes into you. What happens? Well, you're going to get covered by your policy up to wherever it is, but he has no coverage. So let's say you need a lot of physical therapy, you need surgery, out-of-pocket costs. You're not going to get it. Because credit card, they won't pay their credit cards. And the reason that we have whatever we pay on our credit cards is because we have a lot of people who do pay their credit card debt. But if more and more people become soft-sits and they don't pay their credit cards, then the pool that the credit card company has or the bank has isn't enough. So Geico has told them, Geico makes 1 penny profit over every dollar that it has you insured for. The rates will quadruple if more and more people begin listening to sovereign citizens. Credit card rate, they've been told, because of the fraud, will go up 30%. Banks will no longer give loans and won't extend credit because they don't pay back. Next is the unclean hands in arbitration. We had one arbitrator when we presented who came running up to us and said, "Oh my God, I had no idea it was a sov sit." They have unclean hands. They make up bogus arbitration companies that then file arbitration claims against you that are sent to a real court to collect. Next. This is horrible. There have been deaths from this. Squatting. They believe in squatting. You have a rental property, forget about it. They move in. And they have phony court documents that says that they now have a quit claim. They don't. But by the time you get that straightened out, it's a nightmare. This one, no lawyer, including us, knew about. All of a sudden, you find out that someone has filed a $20 million lien against your house. What? How did that happen? What we didn't know is anyone can file a lien on your property. We thought that the lady or man who registers the lien says, "Oh, is this a real?" No, they don't. Their job is to just stamp it. They don't look into it. So the sov sits have been posting $20 million liens against people's houses that they're pissed off with. And you don't know about it. They don't inform you. 10, 20 years down the line, you go to sell your house. Sorry, you have a $20 million lien on your house. That's not a joke. Now, there is no substantiation in law or history. Not one sov sit has ever won in any country on the merits, but they lie. And one of the reasons we haven't done research on their own YouTube channels is because we don't want to give them hits, because that's how they make money. They monetize it on YouTube. But what we see is they get their car repossessed, they get evicted from the house, whatever, and then they lie. I won. There's one that I can direct you to. His name is Randy Martin. He makes tons of money off of selling all of these bogus sov sit things. Here's what he says on his YouTube channel. "I sued the police because I was on a do not detain list and they stopped me. So I won $100,000 from the cops and they had to buy me a new 2024 silver Porsche." It's all a lie. Okay. They continue reading from their scripts. They continue to go to jail. They go from state to state to state. We've tracked them. They always lose. But why are they doing it? It's God's work. They're bringing down the corrupt government. Okay. Now let's get to why it's a leaderless cult. As Eric and I are researching this, we're going, it looks like a cult and it looks like a cult, but how could it be a cult? Well, I contacted a lovely man who's integrally informed. I become friends with him. His name is Dr. Stephen Hassan. If you watch MSNBC, he's on there all the time. He wrote a best-selling book that I bought immediately called The Cult of Trump. He has a wonderful podcast that I recommend called The Influencer Continuum. He has wonderful people on there. And he says, yeah, sov sits are not a typical cult, but, as one of us said in our breakout group, it's important to recognize there are different kinds of cults that appeal to the many different human impulses at different times. Cults proliferate, and Karen, this is just what you were saying, cults proliferate when a society is undergoing rapid change and when there is a breakdown in trust between people and major institutions. It's no surprise that our party system is in upheaval. The two-party system is destroyed. We're now bombarded with fake news, alternative facts. And people are saying that the American dream, Pew Research has said that belief in the American dream is at an all-time low. There are 4 types of cults, which I found interesting. The first is religious. Sov sits, check that. They're returning the government to individual relationship to be under God's free Christian law. Political. Please ignore any law you don't consent with because this is a tyrannical government. Educational. They attend seminars, they listen to YouTube lectures, and they watch each other's live streams. Commercial. Buy their books, attend their seminars. There's one guy Eric and I found. He's not too bright, but he's a content creator. He said, I can get you out of paying child support. Just purchase my affidavits. Yeah, okay. How do you form a cult? In case anybody's interested. Create your own social reality and a view of the world that can interpret all events. Create an in-group of followers who are going against an evil outgroup. Establish your credibility through myths and stories. Send adherents out to proselytize to the unknowledgeable or wrongly informed. They are taught to stay with the cop and teach him Sov Sit until the cop gives in and lets them go. And dangle a notion of a promised land. That's that secret $60 million, $200 million bank account. And yeah, they really believe it. Steve has created in case you're interested, a methodology so you can fit any type of what you think is a cult into, he calls it the BITE model for non-traditional cults. Very quickly, look at their behavior, look at how they disseminate information, look at how they control people's thoughts, and look at how they control their emotions. I'm going to skip over this. This is where I wish I get frustrated because I see integral in everything. And as I was writing, I was going, guys, you've got to analyze them through quadrants, and you've got to analyze them through spiral dynamics and action logics. And so that's what I've done in my papers. Okay, here's the problem. Democracy is predicated upon healthy amber and orange level of debate in legislative bodies. But from the MAGA Republicans in the House, especially, we see theatrics motivated by impulse, hatred, ignorance, displays of raw power, the need to dominate by any means without guilt or shame or rational judgment. So Ken and I had an argument, and because he's Ken, I'll give it to him. He said Trump was orange, and I said, no, he's red, and he's orange. And he's Ken, I'm not. So, all right. We are witnessing an orange cult leader with a red power god underbelly. Only I can fix it. Level of oppression operating within an amber structure. Obliterating healthy competition under orange. We don't get that anymore. Nor is it lost on many that a red underbelly in the guise of amber precedent has taken the federal judiciary and now the state and local branches, including sovereign citizens, to the architecture of what's supposed to function in a healthy orange is being stretched, the mean, divided, threatened, both quantitatively and qualitatively, to the extent that the entire legal justice and law enforcement system is under attack. And I believe had there not been this right-wing precedent-breaking attacks at the very top of the United States, it would not have provoked or given the impetus to these individuals with their stochastic terrorism on the local level. And I can break now if you like for the second one, or go on, whatever you wish. Kathleen.
Let's discuss another question for 15 minutes. I re-scrambled the breakout groups, and our question that Lynn has suggested for us is, have we ever changed our mind about what's true? And what made you consider this change? Perhaps in politics, religion, even about a person you previously trusted. Was it a gut response, something you read that changed your opinion? And think of who you trust in government right now. What would change your opinion of them from positive to negative, or from previous negative to positive? It's kind of a lot of words in there, and there's a limit to what I can put in chat. But let's talk about that, about changing our minds about what is true. And then when we come back, Lynn will be talking about the applying the 4-quadrant method to what they are. All right, we'll discuss amongst yourselves, and we'll see you back in 15 minutes.
Breakout sessions are not recorded.
All right, so to continue. In my papers that Kathleen has graciously appended, I deal with the 4 quadrants. How you can analyze sovereign citizens without the integral, that's why I think the research is a mess. All right, here's the deal. Healthy amber and healthy purple are in short supply. I'm adding to both papers. You have to appreciate how healthy purple helps tie this nation together. Even if all you've done is watch Judge Judy, the black robe, all rise. You know, it's a majesty. It comes from the Greeks. You know, with the I'm going to blank out anyway. It all came from, come on, Lynn, the ladies who told the truth, you know, who spoke, I'm blanking out on the name. Anyway, it comes to us from Greece. The idea that there is ritual and we must respect the ritual. And that's what Sovsits are tearing apart. The fact that they can call Judge Simpson, hey, Cedric, or my honor, holy cow. If any lawyer ever did anything like that, we'd be thrown in jail, fined $1,000. But it's happening every day in courts. So you've got a Sovsit who says to Judge Simpson, who's a god, I love him, hey, Cedric. And the next guy sitting next to him goes, oh, I didn't know you could call the judge by his first name. You see the point? Oh, I'm going to call him, hey, bro. So what we're seeing is a denigration and a dissolution, a dissolving of the healthy purple that the law embodies and the healthy amber. I mean, I went to stupid law school for 3 years and no, I don't need a lawyer. Yeah, I'm facing the death penalty. Yeah, I could do it. I've done a traffic ticket. We need robust, healthy, normal norms in the lower left. That has also been torn apart by the far right. I could not believe, as a political scientist, watching what happened during the Trump administration, where norm after norm was blown apart and ignored. And if it's done away with in the lower left, then anything on the law books is going to be ignored. This is, as you know, a perilous time for the survival of democracy. But MAGA and Sovsits have done away with expertise, science, facts. Now, I'm going to use something that I just got a book by Jonathan Rauch. I'm loving it. I'm eating it up. It's called The Constitution of Knowledge. What he's really talking about is the lower right, you know, our laws. But if he looked at it from an integral perspective, there's also a lower left that is being disrupted and corrupted. And I'm calling it the consensus of knowledge. What are truth? The consensus of knowledge, right? Scientists get together and they figure out, how does water boil? You know, what is the truth about entangled enlightenment? What's going on? And our consensus of knowledge is being disrupted. So, and you're absolutely right. Somebody in one of our breakouts said, Sovsits are privileging the upper left, totally privileging the upper left. What I say goes. And unfortunately, That's what Project 2025 wants, so that every citizen will be able to interpret every law as they see fit. This is ridiculous. Now, are they dangerous? Most are ignorant, they're annoying, but there's a group that's dangerous. And this one kept me up. Yeah, is there bad news? Yeah. There is a malevolent Black-only offshoot. Let me explain. In 1913, a very wonderful man named Prophet Drew Ali came up with a new creation theory for Blacks. I think it started in New Jersey. It's in every state, in every prison. He created what he calls the Moorish Temple of America, MTA. And his creation theory, which I found fascinating, he says, Blacks did not come from Africa. They came from Morocco. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I have read every page they printed. I don't even want to tell you. 50 pages proving this, please. You know, I've gone down the rabbit for you, so you don't have to. It was to be an Islamic Christian religion. They are good people. They wear fezzes. The women wear the tradition, but they're good people. One of them was the client of one of our dear lawyer friends. They were respectful. They went to court. They behaved themselves. They're fine. If that's their creation theory, okay, we got Scientologists out there. Okay. But shortly thereafter, a malignant offshoot established itself called the Moorish Indigenous Aboriginal Nation. Here goes. Not only are they Moorish origin, they are the children of Egyptian pharaohs, and they are the original inhabitants of North and Central America, which they have renamed Amexem. Why? Well, they misread a treaty of 1787 that the United States signed with the Barbary pirates. Yeah, I'll look that up, Regis, thank you. They say we are protected by the United Nations indigenous people. They are seen in the United States, Canada, you've seen them a lot, New Zealand and Australia. They are not law-abiding. They can be violent. Many are ex-felons, ex-military, and they demand that we go back, all of us go back to Europe or Asia, where we came from, because this is their homeland, or else we face execution. Now, I have a clip of one of these, they're called Rise of the Moors. He's being stopped for a traffic ticket that he is screaming and yelling, I don't qualify, I'm an indigenous person. The traffic cop stopping him is a Cherokee Indian. And the Cherokee Indian cop says, wait a minute, you're not an indigenous person, I am. And the Moor screams at him, no, you're not, we were here first. That's what you've got. All right, they freely practice squatting. It's been happening all over New Jersey, I can tell you. You're away for a couple of months on sabbatical. Your house is for sale. They have phony papers that this is Aboriginal territory from Amexem, and they move the family in. Try to get them out without violence. A death occurred in New Jersey maybe 2 months ago, a shootout where the man was squatting and refused to get out. Here's the one that kept me up all night. In 2022, in Massachusetts, the Rise of the Moors held a 9-hour standoff on the interstate. There were 11 ex-military, ex-felons, all armed with AK-47s, no licenses or permits. They were stopped for a silly reason by the state trooper, couldn't figure out what they were doing. They said we're Aboriginal, we're indigenous, whatever. And then the Moors brought out their AK-47s, all 11 of them, and pointed them at the state troopers. The state troopers pulled out their guns. And my heart stopped. And long story, after the standoff, The Moors jumped into the woods and ran away, so there was no firefight. They caught them. They've been using their Savsit defenses. They've only just come to trial this year. So that's 2 years later. One more story I'll tell you, and this one broke my heart. This was a Rise of the Mora, an indigenous Aboriginal, beautiful, beautiful Black woman in California. She filmed that she gave birth to her child alone in her apartment because she wanted the child to be free of the contract and the whole bit. She wanted the child to be a sovereign. And she films the whole thing. What she did with the placenta, I will not go into because you will never eat meat again. Anyway, she takes the baby, who doesn't have a birth certificate or social security, takes the baby without a car seat when the baby's about 3 months old. She's in a car accident. She has no license. Both the baby and she are taken to the hospital. They're both fine. Well, ma'am, is that your daughter? Yes. Well, show us her birth certificate. I don't have one. Well, just go get one and we'll give her back to you. No. This carried on for 6 months. And she filmed it. I watched every day I watched her filming this. She was going to be a true Moor, the way her ancestors in Morocco were. Eventually, she agreed to give up her daughter rather than enslave her by giving her a birth certificate and a social security number. Okay, that broke my heart. Next, we have First Amendment auditors. You might encounter, they're more like my oppositional defiant disorder naughty teens. Yes, they actually live in their mother's basements. That's not a trope, they actually do. They don't have a job. They enter public buildings, offices, hospitals, anywhere. And they film the personnel working. They film whatever you have on your desk, ladies and gentlemen. And you say, get out of here. This is a prosecutor's office or the bank. Bank of America was one. You can't film here. I'm a First Amendment journalist. I'm an auditor to make sure that you're obeying the. No, they're a troublemaker. What they want is for the guards or the police or someone to arrest them, because then they'll get clicks on their monetized YouTube channel. They call the cuffs torture cuffs. They say, I got kidnapped. Okay. Now, spiral dynamics. And this is what cleared things up for me. And then I have one more page and then I'm done. Orange. This is where you plug in your content conspiracy creators. These are the people who make the books, the weekly seminars, most of the profitable YouTube channels. I cannot tell you the amount of downloads you buy from them, the scripts, the origin stories, the phony cases, and it's all a lie. That's orange. What's amber? An amber Savsit is more likely to absorb the pseudo-law scripts as real doctrine. That's where the strongly held belief comes in. They believe this stuff. They're true believers, and they re-educate the police and the judges and you as if it was the hidden law. You know, I had 2 cancers, and I wrote a book about it, Integral Healing. And if you've ever had any kind of illness, you go on YouTube, on Google, the truth about cancer that your doctor won't, that big pharma won't, whatever. This is what they believe, that it's all been hidden. Okay, red. These are the Savsits who are imminent danger, especially to law enforcement. I have tapes of them baiting the police. They have phony license plates. They get in front of a cop and they start live streaming. Oh boy, here comes a cop. I'm gonna get stopped. Wait till you see this. They love being confronted because they think they're gonna get out. Okay. Purple. Purple Savsits sincerely believe that the normative law is a danger to society. They have a black and white view of the world. They say that law is only used by malefactors. They believe that anybody who gets arrested is a victim. They love these new origin stories. Now, I said they're beige. I know they're not But hear me out. There are a lot of these poor souls who are living out of their cars. They cannot afford a new license renewal. They're unemployed. They're living out of their car. And when their car gets towed, their whole world has, I mean, I feel for these people. They're at the bottom of society's barrel, and that is something the legislature could help with. All right, almost done. What can be done about it? Canada has figured a lot of it out. Canada has written a judicial opinion called Mead versus Mead. It has been accepted by 9 of the countries, but not the United States. They put sovereign citizens into a category where a different court has to permit the sov-cit to appear. We don't have that. First Amendment. You get to appear, you get to file your motions. But they have cut down on sovereign citizens a lot in these other countries. Public information, that's why Erica and I are doing this. I'll speak to anybody. This is my duty to warn. Now, fact checkers, what is truth? I found, a long time ago, I used to go to Snopes. I don't know if you use Snopes at all. There are other PolitiFact, to find out what's true during the campaign. There are 5 fact checkers. And then I forgot the name, there's an Uber fact checker who checks the fact checkers. So that fact checker company did a little test. He took all the fact checkers and pitted them against one another about one fact. None of them could agree whether it was true or false. It's like, okay. There are good judges and bad judges. I'm going to race through this. We have our favorite judges, and it's very interesting. For example, Judge Simpson, there's some fabulous judges. And what happened was that a lot of these lawyers who have YouTube channels actually went and educated these particular judges on what a sovereign citizen was. So they handle their sov-cits like this. That's what Eric and I are trying to do in New Jersey, but it's rough. Okay, here we go. This is the 3rd time they've brought Thomas Styron II in for an arraignment that's supposed to take 10 minutes. Judge Simpson, 3rd time they've tried to get him to say his name. He won't. Why? Because during the arraignment, what the judge has to say is, do you understand the charges against you? The sov-cits are trained to say, I do not understand because I do not stand under any man. Got it? That's enough to prevent, that all hell breaks loose in court. So Judge Simpson sees this is the guy as a sov-cit. He figures out, do you comprehend what I just said? And he gets Thomas to say, yeah, I comprehend. Okay. But what is Thomas Styron? This is for real. I am Thomas Styron II. I'm a living man, a natural person, not the state-created corporate fiction on these court documents. I am representing myself. I have no contracts with Michigan at all, so you have no personal or subject matter jurisdiction over me, the living person, at all. I'm not in commerce. I was traveling home in my vehicle. I don't need a license. You must prove you have jurisdiction over me, the entity that you call Thomas Styron II. And judge goes, you just said your name on the record. And Thomas replies, that's not my living person name. I'm not the name attached to that case. You're assuming jurisdiction, aren't you? How? You have to prove it to me. It's not true. I got to show up here under threat, duress, and coercion. And Simpson goes, contempt, get him out. 4th time, for another day. Judge Simpson, do you comprehend what you're being charged with? There are 3 charges against you. Thomas laughs at the judge. Judge goes, another 30 days. That's how you handle them. All right, he's back. You are Thomas Styron. I am the living man. You are compelling me to agree that I'm the legal corporate fiction. The name on the case and my name are 2 different people, 2 different things. Simpson, 30 days. He's back. Again, it's like weeks later. Judge Simpson says, and you got a new charge, you got a felony gun charge, you're looking at 2 more years. Thomas, I'm the beneficiary of my trust in the Treasury. I'm not the trustee. I'm the living person. I do not wish to partake in trust fraud of a Seska V trust fraud that has my social security number attached. You're telling me to appear as a fraud. I'm not the one being unethical. 30 days. This has just happened. Simpson again. Can we continue? Thomas, I am a natural soul appearing in appropriate persona. I am not that artificial entity. You are ignoring my challenge to jurisdiction. And the judge says, do you want a lawyer? And Thomas says, no. To be continued August 28th. It's been since June. We cannot get him arraigned. That normally takes 15 minutes. The end.
Yes, let's take Regis Chapman's hand. I felt so bad being the bad guy earlier. Let's definitely Regis's question first.
Well, I've had a number of things that have come in and gone out since then, but I was thinking that there's a famous legal YouTuber that it would seem to me that would be an excellent. I sent you the link in a
Please.
direct message in the Zoom chat here. So yeah, I think that more people need to know about what this is, and he does a really good job of talking about this. And of all the legal YouTubers I've seen, along with Mark Elias and Democracy Docket, you know,
great.
these guys. But yeah, he does a really good job with that. So and it also might it might be a good thing to try to get with Brian Taylor Cohen, because
I like him.
yeah, he or Tyler Cohen, he does a great job of publicizing these sort of underserved pieces of culture that a lot of other groups, you know, aren't really talking about.
Thank you.
So many questions, but seems like one productive avenue to talk about is like you were talking about how the lower left has been tattered by the right. Just how do we get more people to recognize that, and how do we get people to recognize that we're overprivileging the upper left? How do we take that lower left back? Maybe it's a question for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. No clue.
I'm sorry to point my hand in there, but I'm writing a book about that specifically.
Please, Regis, please share it with me.
This is just the decolonization work that I've been doing,
Right.
and so my point is that if you take a look at the 4 quadrants, I roughly see them as a circle, right? So if I am talking about my individuality, I'm going to be in the top right, and that connection between the top right, top left, and the bottom left is my participation in culture. And I think what they're doing is they're saying that we're, instead of moving in the direction where I as an individual participate in the culture, which creates systems, which then creates some visible, you know, artifact of it. What they're saying is that we should reverse that whole thing and move. They're withdrawing their consent from the culture and working it backward, right?
Good. Yeah.
And so yeah, so if you just see it as a circle, I think it can sometimes help to explain what that is. And so my decolonization approach is to say, well, let's take a look at the systems, because a lot of times what people will do is they'll skip the cultural part. And I think that's what you're talking about, is they just assume that there's a certain system and that has an effect on the person, but they don't recognize that there's this cultural thing in between. And because it's in my view, like recognizing the nature of the water in which we swim is a thing which we've been made blind to, to some degree, I think those people are seeing that there's a huge lack of culture and then trying to put something to replace it in between. And this happens everywhere. When you have corrupt enough systems, parallel systems come up, and parallel systems on the positive side and on the negative side arrive. And the work that I do with the DAO that I work in the cryptocurrency space is supposed to address that kind of thing, right? So my literal everyday work is trying to address what are the factors that lend themselves to working against those kinds of problems, right? So just wanted to sort of say that, and I'd love to follow up with you afterward too.
Thank you, thank you.
So this may be a good place to wrap up the meeting and move on to the second part. We can certainly continue the discussion. So I want to thank everybody for participating. Thank you, Lynn, for all that preparation and introducing us to the sovereign movement. Even though I saw your paper about 4 months ago, I didn't know as much as I know now. And if people want to reach you, Lynn, can you put contact information in the chat, please?
Sure.
And I see that Kathleen has already loaded the various
I do.
papers. So thanks again. A quick reminder, you can go to sandiegolandsgrove.org for next month's event on September 14th. This will be Michael McEnany from ILEA. And I wanted to remind you, ILEA will be doing on April 3rd. Nope. Tickets go on sale 9/1, and April 3rd, 2024, I believe, is when they're going to be doing the embodiment conference in Boulder, Colorado. So if you want information on that, I just put the link in the chat also. I think you know that ILEA, San Diego Integral, and ICON, we're all kind of working closely together. Somebody like Karen Voorhees has her feet in all three camps at once, and I want to know where she got the extra foot.
That's the one I usually keep in my mouth.
Oh, so we're going to move on to the chat segment now. Anyone want to jump back in, or we can pick right up where Regis left off? And this is just free flowing, so jump in and talk away.
Well, this really got my beanie spinning. As a cultural historian, these were this group, the Sovereign Sovsits, was not something I knew about. And in the second chat group, one of the participants pointed out this group has existed for decades, but it got this sudden boost. It burst into just really florid life with the whole MAGA movement. Just gave it a terrific power boost. And this is a pattern I see in our human history as we've gone up the 6 stages in first tier. For those of you who are used to the stages and tiers, we've had 6 levels of human civilization, old Stone Age, new Stone Age, agriculture, ancient empires, medieval modernity, post-modernity, and now we're moving into yet another one, second tier, according to Ken Wilber. With every one of these movements, there has been a period of turbulence when the next new level of complexity in human society is first emerging. There's a period of huge turbulence. I mean, this is mirrored in physics and geology and biological life too, punctuated equilibrium, phase change, et cetera. Well, it happens in human societies. And lucky us, we are living through a period of intense turbulence as not just a next new stage in civilization, but a whole new tier is coming online. We are living through a period of intense turbulence as the new structures that don't really exist yet are coming in and these are amplified by the new technologies of communication like social media. So in this context, I look in the past and see there have been periods very much like this where where the next new order of human civilization is coming online. There is in that period of turbulence, there is a regressive xenophobic backlash with people who circle the wagons. They're threatened by what they see as the end of the world, the end, this is the end of everything. Oh no, we've got to go back to the old ways. They circle the wagons, and I could cite examples, but what our presenter today, Lynne, has told us is a specific form, a very virulent form of this. I mean, I'm hopeful in the long run because this heralds a new progressive era. The past progressive eras, even in this country, have had regressive xenophobic backlashes like this. This is particularly intense because we're going through an exceptionally intense turbulence. And my concern is that how much harm gets done in the short run. And I am so grateful to Lynne and people like her who are trying to spread the word to law enforcement, the polling places, so that we can be prepared, so that we minimize the damage, the harm that's done, the lives that are ruined by this, because there will be a next new era eventually. Hopefully we can minimize the disruption since we know these patterns now. But I see this, so this is the larger context in which I'm seeing Lynne's presentation today. And it's thank you for thank you for the work you're doing. It's necessary. I hope it does good. And I've enjoyed this discussion very much.
So along those lines, somebody like Trump is really speaking unconsciously but collectively for these people that are disenfranchised,
Yes.
left behind, because the rapidity of the change, there's no way they're going to catch up. I've been trying to express empathy for the incels. I haven't got much warmth on that one. But it's real because, the next iteration of the organization, second tiers online. So I found it remarkable that 2015, 7,000 shrinks signed a letter saying, we think that Donald Trump needs to be screened for narcissistic personality disorder. And of course, nothing got done. I think all federal officials, Christine can tell you that if you want to fly an airline, you've got to be screened. Is that true, Christine? Yep. But, you want to lead America, every pathology is fine. But I really liked your summary, Karen.
I have a question. We are making extrapolation that, there were transitions in level of development in the past, and, there are going to be, again, turbulence. But what's happening is that the higher the stage that we are moving into, the less are the number of people or the percentage of people that are really in this stage, and the discrepancy between these people who move up and all the rest is growing and growing and growing. And the question is if we can really assume that it will always be this way. And, personally, I'm afraid. I don't think it's going to happen. I think we stretch it so much that we are, some of us, moving forward and kind of run, and we are leaving so many people behind that at certain point we are not going to be able to pull them forward, and there is going to be clash and something is going to break, and we are in minority. So I don't know. This is my fear, and I would be very glad if you can make me feel a little better. And I really appreciate your perspective, Karen, but we talked about it before.
Thank you for that, Tamar. These times we're living in, they don't have easy answers. I mean, I wish they did, but they don't. And of course, as I look out at the names and the people of this group and the people I've been participating with for 20 years. We know about colors and memes and all of the kinds of things that we know about. And I think it's wonderful. And thank you all for being my pals. We're really up against something where there's a major kind of disruption and shift. And it's almost like we have to, I said in the chat, I said to my soul, be still and let the darkness come upon you. We really don't know. And it's really troubling to sit in the darkness, but with faith that something is trying to emerge in a greater way. And I know all of the people on this screen, and I know you, Lynne, I know you deeply and I love you. We don't know. And we're wanting the best. And we want the best of the purple people and the beige people and the blue people, and we want the best. But I said to my soul, be still and let the darkness come upon you. Because we really don't know right now. But I bet if everyone on this screen sat for 1 second in that silence, there's a light that breaks through and you go, ah, yeah, I can follow that. Keep going.
Beautiful, Patricia. I'm going to throw in a T.S. Eliot quote from that same poem, very close to it. I said to my soul, be still and wait without hope, for hope would be hope of the wrong thing. Wait without love, for love would be love of the wrong thing. There is yet faith, but the faith and the love and the hope are all in the waiting. And wow. And T.S. Eliot, he brings it around, in his beautiful metaphorical language, but he does bring it around to a place where something beautiful breaks through. That's what the thunder said. And this is my hope, the universe, and this is for Tamar. Tamar and I are continuing a conversation here that's been ongoing for a while. The hope and the fear and the concern. I look at the universe and I see a 13.82 billion year track record of emergences of greater complexity, one after another, after another, after another, first in the physiosphere, then in the geosphere, then in the biosphere, and then in human societies. And the human societies repeat some of the larger patterns from the physiosphere, geosphere, and biosphere. I mean, this is a pretty large data set. I personally feel like I can draw some robust conclusions. There will be a next new emergence. Why would the universe stop now? But as a historian, I also know how dark the dark age can get before the next new order of complexity emerges, before modernity emerges out of the Middle Ages, the wars of religion in Europe, the Dark Age, but what we know, my hope is with what we know now, we don't know. The point is, as Patricia, we don't know what's going to emerge. We have some clues, we see some green shoots, and we can at least water those and try to mitigate the damage along the way. And I think everybody here who's familiar with Integral has some sense, some deep, visceral, intuitive sense that there is something bright ahead of us, even though we don't know what it's going to be yet. And I know, Tamar, you came to that conference 3 months ago. I know there's got to be a little bit of hope in your heart too. I think we're all waiting without certainty in the dark, waiting to see what's going to come and trying to nourish the positive and compost the darkness so that it becomes fertilizer. I don't know, a lot of metaphors we can play with, but I see. So the history of the universe, that's my reason for hope.
You don't have to raise your hand, Regis, just jump in.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, it seems to me that the only real way that I can love the thing is to not need it to be different.
Hmm.
And so in that sense, I think, I'm trying to there is a kind of a cultural echo even in this group, of really excellent thinkers of, in some sense, trying to caretake for it. But my thing, I always go back to this thought that I can't properly care for a baby when it's crying if I descend into the kind of problem that it's currently having. And so like in some sense, it's like I have to be totally fine with whatever it is and just look at and care for the baby and giving it what it needs, even if the only thing it knows how to do is scream. So like, so and so that's, I think, analogous to what you guys were all talking about.
I don't think we know, but I keep thinking of World War II, and we've had 79 years without a war. That's progress. And when I think back to World War II and, what those people had to face, Germany, the Holocaust, the Japanese, the absolute tyranny that threatened to take over the war. And then I think about the 60s, us throwing early postmodernism in their face and doing our part to destroy the lower left at that point, at the next emergence. I'll never forget it. About 85, my father-in-law, who accelerated at Rutgers so he could get into the war in Europe. And we're standing at the kitchen sink doing the dishes. Fred, I had no idea what you guys sacrificed. And he said, Tom, it's not like we tried to understand the 60s very well either. So it was two humble guys looking back and owning our own ignorance at the time. But yeah, I'm more optimistic that I think what Karen said, because this tier 2 change is going to make the 60s look like cakewalk, all the lumber is creaking at once, and Trump gave voice to it because it's going to be monumental. You can feel it. They're communists because we're going to have a collective vision of the good, the beautiful, and true. It scares the hell out of them. Mainly because their constructs are going to undergo radical revision. But I'm optimistic.
Tom, I have to respond to you, and I'm so grateful for your comment. So I'm a homeopath. And what homeopaths do is we take one drop of a substance and it changes the whole thing. And so we've been doing this for 200 years. But in this group, we are all homeopaths. And what you just did, and when I'm hearing you talk to your father-in-law, I got this vision of a very clear light. And something that's that clear and coherent, it really does reverberate out. And Lynn, I hope you'll forgive me. I hope this isn't magical thinking. In part it is, but in part it's hardcore science. That whenever there is a coherence around an agreement of how things should be better, where there's more love, there's more life, there's greater care and concern for greater levels, it has a kind of force of its own. And sometimes you can only, cultivate it in your own little backyard with your grandson or whatever. But this group is working on tuning in to the power of coherent caring, right? And it has a coherence that actually has a physical manifestation that reverberates out. So that's me, the homeopath from Olympia, Washington, saying, yay, here we are. We've done something by getting together today to care. And who knows how it's going to live out in each of our lives. but there is a coherent energy field at this moment that we created. So thank you all.
Wow, Patricia. Now I'm going to quote another quote. This is from a scientist, Ilya Prigogine, not the Wagner mercenary guy, the Nobel Award-winning chemistry. So this is hard science to back up what you just said about coherence. And this is Nobel Award-winning science. He said, in a system that is far from equilibrium, small islands of coherence have the power to shift the entire system. And the metaphor I boiled that down to once with Tom and I boiled it down to is like seed crystals in a supersaturated solution that's cooling. And yes, 100%, 200% what you just said, Patricia. So, I mean, this is these islands of coherence in a period of extreme turbulence, a very fertile chaos. They can have great power to proliferate if they're truly coherent. And that's why I keep coming back to this group. I love these islands of coherence that we create together.
Yay. And I want to go back to the sovereign citizens that you've been telling us about, Lynne, because they're upset about something, right? And I want to understand what they're upset about so we can bring it forward.
I want to say something before I have to leave. So I want to thank Lynne for bringing this to our attention. It feels like a mixed blessing, a warning, an eye opener. I have a mixed sense of feelings about the people who fall into this category. Certainly some compassion and
Yes.
Also disdain, because it feels corrosive. It feels like people who are unjustifiably feeling victimized and want to make everybody else pay for that. That's it.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
There's a quote that I've kept on my desk for a long time, and that is, "Who are you to set right the world? Your job is to see first that your own mind changes, right?" And so, in some sense, that goes back to that coherence thing that Karen was talking about, right? It's I think our first responsibility is to be coherent within ourselves, and then to be a group with people who are being coherent, and then that's how it all spreads, right? So as long as we're operating inside out, narcissistic pattern operates outside in, so it requires all these things of the world in order to feel okay with itself, because it can't really know itself. But I think if we just operate inside out, then we can hopefully just continue that coherent growth.
You know, I think talking about coherence, I think Joe Biden, when he walked away from the presidency, I think history is going to record that tantamount to what George Washington did. Because at this juncture of our time, it was crucial. And I think it has a lot that the good and the noble in it ignited Kamala Harris's campaign. And you can feel the people responding to the message of hope. And what I really like about her, even above Obama, the great orator, is she doesn't just stay high. I don't think that's a good idea. Like even in parenting, If you can't tell a developing child, because I said so, you don't even love me anymore. Love you? I don't even like you right now. Go to your room. I mean, it doesn't matter where we're dealing with it. You've got to have a lot of positivity, but you've got to be able to call BS BS. And I see it in Harris, is she's igniting hope mostly, but I mean, coming out of the Trump doc era, it seems like an easy thing to do, but people are ready for it to move on. But I just think this amalgamation between Biden and Harris showing up on the spot at the right time is going to end this period.
That's the great hope. But it's amazing how it all came together. I mean, it came together so fast, you would think they had planned it carefully for months and months. And yeah, this is getting into my crazy visionary side as opposed to my disciplined academic side, but it just feels like a very big tide is changing now. It's not just on the Harris Walls front, but there's an energy, a positive energy coming in on a number of fronts. I mean, I hope this is something real I'm perceiving and not just my own magical thinking, but something.
I think, excuse me.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Kathleen, I mean, and Karen, I'm so in tune with everything you're saying as political science, history teacher, the whole bit. Don always said that first tier is governed by fear and second tier is covered by love and hope, and the have-nots first. I see it, and people have been hungry for it. And to be honest, it's changed. My daughter is like so on top of my emotional temperature. She said, God, you've changed, since this all happened, because I stay tuned to what's going on culturally as well as politically, as well as legally. The whole thing is turned. People were out there quietly, so tired of morose, apocalyptic hatred, smugness. And she and I love the governor. I love him. I think he's just fantastic. So I'm just kind of blithering right now, but I'm no longer afraid. And yes, I have hope too. And my desire to present today was not to scare the hell out of you or to be concerned with law. Part of it, I have to be honest with you. I once presented, this was back in 2008 at an integral education conference as a lawyer. And I heard somebody say, I don't want to listen to her. She's a lawyer. She's Amber. Law does integral too. There are not many of us, but law can be integral. We can look at things from an integral perspective. So it's kind of me coming out of the shadows going, I stake a claim as an integral lawyer. That we can have an integral perspective on stuff as blue, amber code is as law. That's what I wanted to say. Karen, you were phenomenal. Patricia always puts me into a second tier state of mind. And I haven't really been active with integral for many, many, many reasons, but that's where my heart has been. I discovered Ken in 1983 when I was in law school. It's who I am. Every cell in my body is, and I'm so appreciative to invite me and let me talk with you, because I don't get to talk this way. Okay, I'm so hungry for it. So Tom and everybody, thank you. I miss this terribly.
Well, you're welcome to come back whenever you want.
Thank you.
So this idea of creating islands of resonance and coherence, and will it have a psychoactive developmental effect where we're actually accelerating the transformation? When we meet collectively, when we build conferences, when we seed people wherever they are, I believe it does. Because we've seen it in other limited developmental models, and we've seen the reaction to it. People that aren't ready for it, and they're hearing that message. So, who would ever thought inclusivity could be demonized? It is. I mean, really, it's like saying bread's a bad thing. Like it is. But that question is, do you hold that as a hope that when we create resonance that we're able to cohere, there's a permanently float in the mycelial network that anyone can tap whatever they want? Karen loves that talk.
Thank you guys. What a phenomenal time I've had with you, and I'm bowing out now because I have other commitments, but blessings, love. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to everybody who's here, and thanks to Karen as always. Any group that she's in, I'm always happy to be in. And Lynn, I hope we can talk at some point. I think a lot of what you're doing and what I'm doing have some things that I've done some presentations on my decolonization stuff before. I had talked to this group about doing it, but I've been so busy in my personal life that I haven't been able to put together a proposal for that. So I apologize to the group for not putting that together, but I will try to get to it at some point. But yeah, I'd like to follow up with you at some future moment if you heard from me anything that resonated.
I still believe that we need to act from all quadrant, not just from the upper left, because if we want to decrease fear and increase love, I mean, regardless of what level of developmental people are, we need to have people feel that the society or the culture or whatever cares about them and takes care of our needs. As long as the rich become richer and the poor become poor, and people are scared for their life, I don't believe it will happen. That was preceded World War II. That was caused the communism to rise in one side and the fascism in the other side. And we see the extreme in both sides, left and right, rising, and this scared me the most. As America that I came to govern from the center of both parties, and we see it kind of going apart, and we need to have most of the people go somehow to the state. I mean, just believe that the state cares about them, whatever it is, and not because if there is no trust, I know everything falls apart, and that's what I'm feeling. I don't know how we can do that, but we cannot just. I mean, yeah, sure, we've got to make sure to take care of ourselves and be coherent and all that. But I don't think we can only act from the upper level. We have to act from all quadrant, and that means is the law. Make sure that the money, not the money rules, but a government that cares for people first and money second rules, and I don't know how to get there, but I don't, yeah, that's what I believe. I mean, we have to act from all quadrants.
And to not only act from four quadrants, but act more literally from an integral space, from an integral consciousness. And I see this especially applying to politics, to your point, Tamar, that Republicans have become so entrenched in their views. The Democrats have become so entrenched. The Democrats don't see that. the Republicans don't see that about themselves. But that's because they're not coming from an integral perspective about it. And I've been thinking a lot about this in terms of what keeps us so stuck. That's an appropriate word. Entrenched, stuck, so consumed with confirmation bias that we just don't have that ability to loosen our mental grip on our perspective, to look at the other side as human beings. They're doing the best they know how. Dems are doing the best they know how. Republicans are doing the best they know how. And if they can get to an integral perspective, not that I have any huge hopes about that, but supposedly we as integralists here, if we're not doing it, if we're not willing to loosen our mental grip on our positions, and they are positions, from construct to word, that becomes really clear. They're positions, and they're not better than the other side. They're just different from the other side. And I would suggest that if any of us really look at ourselves, we'll see that we have at least some amount of each party's philosophies within us. There's a little bit of conservatism, there's a little bit of liberality, and to entrench in one or the other as an integralist, it just doesn't make sense. And it's embarrassing, in my opinion. Human beings are wanting to survive on one end, they're wanting to flourish on the other end, and everything in between. And how can we get better at finding each other? I think a lot of that has to do with getting better at finding ourselves. Who and what are we really? We're not just Republicans. That's an identity cluster, which entrenchment and which camp we decide to identify with. It's an identity. It's not a reality. It's a choice. For most of it's an unconscious choice. We just find ourselves gravitating toward one side or the other. And yes, I'm noticing I'm preaching. But this is really important to me. Finding each other and finding ourselves in each other and being courageous enough, willing enough, daring enough to do, I guess you could call it the work. It has a sense of work to it because it's not easy. But it's so necessary, especially as integralists. If we're going to be honest with ourselves about being integral and what that is, we have to see that we're not just Democrats, we're not just Republicans, we're a little of both. And can we get honest about that? And can we learn to see that, oh, those Republicans with the 2025 project, oh, that's so crazy. Yeah, I read a lot of it. It's pretty out there. And the Democrats with their, I don't know, what's an example of the Democrats?
Wokes.
What?
All wokes.
Say it again?
Woke. The
woke.
woke.
Yeah. Oh my God, the woke thing. Yeah, you had good intentions when it started, wanting to be identified, recognized, included. I get that. So
well, and that's actually kind of revealing of how conservatism has basically outcompeted all other philosophies, because even the woke philosophy, which really was like trying to take back this idea of, you know, just being aware of all these things, the fact that it then could be turned into a conservative way of doing things is fairly extraordinary to me. I find there's certain extraordinary facts about all of this, like how in a single generation you could have people who went to war against fascism now that have weaponized weaponized people to fascism. So there, it actually kind of, like we often talk about how we have this sort of godlike technology, but we also have this godlike propaganda mechanism that is almost undeniable. It operates on you in a way you're not even conscious of. And so even if you are attempting to be more woke, you automatically go into this extremist position with respect to it. And that for me is an extraordinary fact, and I think is revealing of the underlying mechanisms at hand. And I'm actually hoping that by normalizing different educational approaches to this, we can make a clear approach to this. Of course, now if a mob shows up and says your decolonization work is, you know, the enemy, then they could probably dispatch me as well. But I'm just saying, I remain hopeful.
I agree pretty much with what Larry said. However, in radical wholeness, Wilber makes a point of, he's criticizing Green as usual, but he makes a point of try to make the statement that some cultures are better than others today. And they are. Some are better than others. But man, is that going to get you in a lot of hot water very quick? But if we can't discern the good, the true, and the beautiful, we're hopefully lost. But in defense of Green, it's very interesting when Green created chaos to the lower left. But what I'm finding now with unhealthy Reds populating the dialogue, Greens certainly are beginning to march in lockstep. Green has actually come together in coherency, despite all the fun we make of endless Green debating. It looks like it's coming together, and maybe it is a precursor to a second tier move, that they're sure enough of their individuality that it doesn't always have to be front and center anymore. So it's very curious what's happening now. One of my conservative friends said, when did the hell the liberals approve of a war in the past?
A what?
War.
War.
The Ukrainians are referencing.
Yeah. So Tom, in which ways do you see Green coming together? Can you give some specifics?
They're not getting lost. One, there isn't that heavy push to constant individuality and that overreaction to organization because of those dominator hierarchies what we're always talked about. Because having a consistent path, they fell behind Harris. I mean, none of us saw how quick this was going to come together. It's been extraordinary in money, in enthusiasm. It's been something to see. So, and maybe it is a precursor to taking that second tier leap. None of us know how it's going to unfold. Who said that? She's gone.
Several of us. But I think
Several.
this extreme polarization is the kind of energy that precedes a leap to a whole new level of complexity. It's like a battery, you know, this is like supercharged. Now, can we use all this energy to propel us up, you know, in the teeth of an entropic universe? We need a lot of energy to create structure. And these kinds of polarizations can, if we use them well, be the very fuel that can propel us up to that next level of complexity.
It
So
seems
this is one of these, you know, the Chinese curse, you know, the Chinese word for crisis is disaster versus opportunity. It's one of those polarities we've been just talking about in integral circles recently.
It seems to me, if Trump loses this election in major time, the whole narrative for the GOP is going to get revised.
Yes.
And the legitimacy of the green narrative about inclusivity, communal interests, that might become the actual dominant narrative over the modern narrative. You know, greed is good. Get your own while it's good. We could be on the verge of a huge seismic shift.
You know, I love this sort of non sequitur in the middle of this Stevie Nicks song where she said, "The cloud never expects it when it rains." And I think it's actually a really interesting thing for this kind of spontaneous thing that you're talking about here. You know, where it's like we didn't know it was coming. I mean, we all knew it was coming. We just didn't expect it. Right. I mean, there's a cloud there, so it should be obvious to some degree that at some point it might rain, but you just never know when exactly. So it's an artistic spin on this thing we're talking about, I think. Okay, guys, I gotta go. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good to see you
We
all.
come to a good point to end tonight.
Yeah.
So thank you, Lynn, for generating all this great discussion
Yeah, thanks, Lynn.
and
Real eye-opener.
getting this going. Don't forget, next month we're back on, and we should be off and running. And if anyone wants to join the ICON team to help develop it, we're looking for new members. We have 3 here tonight. So, okay, everyone, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
For further information, including upcoming events, resources, links to our Facebook and Meetup pages, and our fabulous donate button, please visit our website at sandiegointegral.org. Donations are greatly appreciated and help us to continue to provide information and connection within the Integral community.